Reading stories in English is not just a journey into fascinating worlds, but also a powerful tool for learning and mastering the language.
Hello everyone. Today we're going to explore the amazing story of Nike, one of the most famous brands in the world. From a small idea to a global icon, Nike's journey is full of passion, innovation, and inspiration. Whether you love sports, business, or just great stories, this is a tale you won't want to miss. So, let's get started and discover how Nike went from selling shoes out of a car to becoming a symbol of just do it. Chapter 1. The beginning of Nike.
It was the early 1960s. The world of sports was changing. Athletes were running faster, jumping higher, and trying to break records. But there was one big problem: their shoes. Most athletic shoes at the time were heavy, uncomfortable, and not designed for top performance. This is where the story of Nike begins. It's a story about two men, a big idea, and a dream that would change the world of sports forever.
The coach and the runner.
The first man in this story was Bill Bowerman. He was a track and field coach at the University of Oregon in the United States. Bowerman was not just a coach. He was a mentor and an innovator. He cared deeply about his athletes and always looked for ways to help them improve. He believed that every small detail could make a big difference in performance. One of his biggest interests was shoes. He thought that if he could create a better shoe, one that was lighter, faster, and more comfortable, it could help his runners perform better. The second man was Phil Knight. He was a former middle-distance runner and one of Bowerman's students. Phil loved running, but he also had a passion for business. After graduating from the University of Oregon, he went to Stanford University to study business. There, he wrote a research paper that would change his life. In the paper, Phil proposed an idea. What if high-quality, low-cost running shoes from Japan could be sold in the United States? He believed that American athletes deserved better shoes, and he wanted to be the one to provide them.
The big idea.
Phil Knight's idea didn't stay on paper for long. In 1962, he traveled to Japan. There, he visited a company called Onitsuka Tiger, now known as Asics. They made high-quality running shoes that were not only well-designed but also affordable. Phil was impressed. He saw an opportunity to bring these shoes to the United States and sell them to American athletes. He made a deal with Onitsuka Tiger to become their exclusive distributor in the U.S. This meant he would be the only one selling their shoes in the country. When Phil returned home, he shared his idea with Bill Bowerman. Bowerman was immediately interested. He saw the potential to improve the shoes even further and help athletes perform at their best. Together, they decided to start a company.
Blue Ribbon Sports.
In 1964, Phil Knight and Bill Bowerman each contributed $500 and founded a company called Blue Ribbon Sports, BRS. At first, the business was very small. Phil sold shoes out of the trunk of his green Plymouth Valiant car. He would drive to track meets and local events, set up a small stand, and talk to athletes about the shoes. He believed in the product and wanted others to see its value. Meanwhile, Bill Bowerman worked on improving the shoe designs. He was always experimenting with new ideas. He tried different materials and even used his wife's waffle iron to create a new type of sole. This sole was lighter and provided better grip, which was perfect for runners. Bowerman's innovations helped make the shoes even better. The first shipment of shoes arrived in 1964, and the response was positive. Athletes loved the shoes, and word began to spread. By the end of the year, Blue Ribbon Sports had sold $8,000 worth of shoes. It was a modest start, but it was a start.
The early challenges.
Running a business wasn't easy. Phil Knight worked long hours. During the day, he worked as an accountant, and at night, he focused on his shoe business. He was determined to make Blue Ribbon Sports a success. Bill Bowerman also worked hard. He continued to experiment with shoe designs, often using whatever materials he could find. There were times when money was tight, and the future of the company was uncertain. But both men were determined to succeed. One of their biggest challenges was competition. At the time, Adidas and Puma were the dominant brands in the athletic shoe market. Blue Ribbon Sports was just a small player, but Phil and Bill believed in their vision. They knew that if they could create better shoes and build strong relationships with athletes, they could compete with the big names.
A dream takes shape.
By the late 1960s, Blue Ribbon Sports was growing. They opened their first retail store in Santa Monica, California. This was a big step for the company. They also hired their first employees. But Phil Knight and Bill Bowerman wanted more. They didn't just want to sell shoes. They wanted to create their own brand. They wanted a brand that would stand for innovation, quality, and the spirit of competition. Little did they know, their small company was about to take a giant leap forward. The next chapter of their story would involve a new name, a new logo, and a new identity that would change the world of sports forever.
Chapter 2. The birth of the Nike brand.
By the late 1960s, Blue Ribbon Sports, BRS, was growing. Phil Knight and Bill Bowerman had worked hard to build their small company, but they knew it was time for a change. They didn't just want to sell shoes, they wanted to create their own brand, a brand that would stand for innovation, quality, and the spirit of competition. This chapter tells the story of how Blue Ribbon Sports became Nike, one of the most famous brands in the world.
The need for a new identity.
In the early years, Blue Ribbon Sports sold shoes made by Onitsuka Tiger. But Phil Knight and Bill Bowerman wanted more. They wanted to design and sell their own shoes. They believed they could create something better, something that would truly help athletes perform at their best. To do this, they needed a new identity. They needed a new name, a new logo, and a new vision. Phil Knight knew that a strong brand was important. A brand is more than just a name or a logo. It's the feeling people have when they think about a company. Phil wanted Nike to stand for excellence, innovation, and the spirit of sports. But first, they needed the right name.
The name, Nike.
In 1971, Phil Knight and Bill Bowerman decided to change the name of their company. They wanted a name that was short, powerful, and easy to remember. After many ideas, they chose the name Nike. This name came from Greek mythology. Nike was the Greek goddess of victory. She was often shown with wings, symbolizing speed and strength. The name was perfect for a company that wanted to help athletes win. But a name alone wasn't enough. They also needed a logo, a symbol that people would recognize and remember. This is where the famous swoosh came from.
The swoosh logo.
The Nike swoosh is one of the most famous logos in the world. But do you know how it was created? It all started with a graphic design student named Carolyn Davidson. In 1971, Carolyn was a student at Portland State University. Phil Knight, who was teaching accounting at the university, asked her to design a logo for his new company. He told her he wanted something that represented motion and speed. Carolyn worked on several designs, but the one that stood out was the swoosh. It was a simple, curved line that looked like a wing or a movement. Phil Knight wasn't completely sure about the design at first, but he decided to go with it. He told Carolyn, "I don't love it, but maybe it will grow on me." Little did he know, the swoosh would become one of the most recognizable logos in history. Carolyn was paid $35 for her work. Years later, when Nike became successful, Phil Knight gave her a special gift, a gold swoosh ring and some Nike stock. This was his way of saying thank you for her incredible contribution.
The first Nike shoes.
With a new name and a new logo, Nike was ready to launch its first line of shoes. The first Nike shoe was called the Nike Cortez. It was designed for runners and had several innovative features. The shoe was lightweight, comfortable, and had a special sole that provided excellent grip. The Cortez was a hit with athletes, and it helped establish Nike as a serious competitor in the athletic shoe market. But Nike didn't stop there. They continued to innovate and improve their designs. Bill Bowerman was always experimenting with new ideas. He wanted to create shoes that were not only functional, but also helped athletes perform better. His passion for innovation was a key part of Nike's success.
The just do it spirit.
Even in the early days, Nike had a special spirit. It was a spirit of determination, hard work, and never giving up. This spirit would later be captured in Nike's famous slogan, "Just do it." But in the 1970s, the company was still finding its voice. Phil Knight and Bill Bowerman believed in their vision, and they were willing to take risks to make it happen. One of their biggest risks was leaving Onitsuka Tiger and focusing on their own brand. This was a difficult decision because Onitsuka Tiger had been their partner for many years, but Phil and Bill knew that if they wanted to grow, they needed to be independent. They needed to create their own identity.
Challenges and competition.
The 1970s were a challenging time for Nike. They faced strong competition from brands like Adidas and Puma. These companies were already well established and had a loyal customer base. Nike was still a small company, but they had something special, a commitment to innovation and a deep understanding of athletes' needs. One of Nike's biggest advantages was Bill Bowerman's expertise. He was always looking for ways to improve shoe design. For example, he created the waffle sole, which was inspired by his wife's waffle iron. This sole had a unique pattern that provided better grip and was lighter than traditional soles. It was a game changer for runners and helped Nike stand out from the competition.
A brand is born.
By the mid-1970s, Nike was becoming a well-known brand. Their shoes were popular with athletes, and their logo was starting to gain recognition. But Nike wasn't just selling shoes. They were selling a dream of victory, of pushing limits, and of achieving greatness. This dream resonated with people, and it helped Nike grow. The company also started to sponsor athletes. One of their first endorsements was with Steve Prefontaine, a famous American runner. Prefontaine was known for his determination and his never-give-up attitude. He embodied the spirit of Nike, and his partnership with the company helped build its reputation.
Looking to the future.
By the end of the 1970s, Nike was no longer a small company selling shoes out of a car. They were a growing brand with a clear vision and a commitment to innovation. But Phil Knight and Bill Bowerman knew that the journey was just beginning. They had big dreams for the future, and they were ready to take Nike to the next level. Little did they know, the next chapter of their story would involve one of the most famous athletes in the world and a shoe that would change the game forever.
Chapter 3. Innovation and Growth.
By the 1980s, Nike was no longer a small company. It was a growing brand with a strong reputation for innovation and quality. But the world of sports was changing, and Nike needed to keep up. This chapter tells the story of how Nike continued to innovate, create new technologies, and become a global leader in athletic footwear.
The importance of innovation.
From the beginning, innovation was at the heart of Nike's success. Bill Bowerman, the co-founder, was always experimenting with new ideas to improve shoe design. He believed that even small changes could make a big difference for athletes. This spirit of innovation continued to drive Nike in the 1980s. One of Nike's biggest challenges was staying ahead of the competition. Brands like Adidas and Reebok were also creating new technologies and marketing their products aggressively. Nike knew that to stay on top, they needed to keep innovating. They needed to create shoes that were not only functional, but also revolutionary.
The waffle sole.
One of Nike's earliest innovations was the waffle sole. This was created by Bill Bowerman in the 1970s, but it became even more popular in the 1980s. The story goes that Bowerman was inspired by his wife's waffle iron. He poured rubber into the waffle iron to create a new type of sole that was lightweight and had better grip. This design was perfect for runners, and it helped Nike stand out from the competition. The waffle sole was a game changer. It was not only functional but also unique. When people saw the waffle pattern on the bottom of a shoe, they knew it was a Nike. This helped build brand recognition and loyalty.
Air technology, a revolution in shoe design.
In 1979, Nike introduced one of its most important innovations, air technology. This was a new type of cushioning that used air pockets in the sole of the shoe to provide better comfort and support. The idea was simple but brilliant. Instead of using traditional materials like foam, Nike used air to create a softer, more responsive feel. The first shoe to feature air technology was the Nike Air Tailwind. It was released in 1979 and was an instant hit. Runners loved the extra cushioning, and the shoe helped Nike gain even more popularity. But this was just the beginning. Over the next few years, Nike continued to improve air technology and use it in more of their shoes.
The Nike Air Max.
In 1987, Nike took air technology to the next level with the Nike Air Max. This shoe was different because it had a visible air pocket in the sole. People could actually see the air cushioning, which made the shoe look futuristic and cool. The Air Max was designed by Tinker Hatfield, a former architect who became one of Nike's most famous designers. The Air Max was not just a shoe, it was a statement. It showed that Nike was a leader in innovation and design. The shoe became incredibly popular, not just with athletes, but also with everyday people who wanted comfortable and stylish footwear. The Air Max line is still popular today, and new versions are released every year.
Marketing and endorsements.
In the 1980s, Nike also became known for its clever marketing and high-profile endorsements. The company understood the power of celebrity athletes and used them to promote their products. One of their most famous endorsements was with Michael Jordan, a young basketball player who would become one of the greatest athletes of all time. In 1984, Nike signed a deal with Michael Jordan to create a line of basketball shoes called Air Jordan. The first Air Jordan shoe was released in 1985 and was an instant success. It was not just a shoe, it was a cultural phenomenon. Kids everywhere wanted to be like Mike and wear his shoes. The Air Jordan line helped Nike dominate the basketball market and became one of the most successful product lines in history.
Challenges and controversies.
Despite its success, Nike faced challenges in the 1980s. One of the biggest was competition from Reebok. Reebok had become popular by focusing on aerobics shoes, which were trendy at the time. Nike had to find a way to compete in this new market. They responded by creating their own line of aerobics shoes and expanding into other sports like tennis and soccer. Nike also faced criticism for its labor practices. Some people accused the company of using factories in poor countries where workers were paid very little. Nike worked to address these issues and improve conditions in their factories. They also became a leader in corporate responsibility, setting an example for other companies.
A global brand.
By the end of the 1980s, Nike was a global brand. Their shoes were sold in countries all over the world, and their logo was recognized everywhere. The company had grown from small business selling shoes out of a car to a multinational corporation with billions of dollars in revenue. But Nike's success wasn't just about money. It was about a commitment to innovation, quality, and the spirit of sports. Nike believed in helping athletes push their limits and achieve their dreams. This belief was at the core of everything they did.
Looking to the future.
As the 1980s came to an end, Nike was already thinking about the future. They knew that the world of sports would continue to change, and they needed to be ready. The next chapter of their story would involve new technologies, new markets, and new challenges. But one thing was certain: Nike would continue to innovate and inspire.
Chapter 4. Challenges and competition.
By the 1990s, Nike was one of the most famous brands in the world. Their shoes were worn by athletes and everyday people everywhere. But success didn't come without challenges. This chapter tells the story of how Nike faced competition, criticism, and controversy, and how they worked to overcome these challenges. The rise of competition. In the 1990s, the athletic shoe market was more competitive than ever. Brands like Adidas, Reebok, and Puma were all fighting for a share of the market. Each company had its own strengths. Adidas was known for its soccer shoes, Reebok was popular for its aerobic shoes, and Puma had a strong presence in running and lifestyle footwear. Nike knew it had to stay ahead of the competition. They continued to focus on innovation and marketing, but they also had to adapt to new trends. One of the biggest trends in the 1990s was the rise of streetwear, casual, stylish clothing, and shoes that people wore every day, not just for sports. Nike saw an opportunity to expand into this market.
The Air Max and Air Jordan success.
Two of Nike's most successful product lines in the 1990s were the Air Max and Air Jordan shoes. The Air Max, with its visible air cushioning, became a symbol of innovation and style. People loved the futuristic look of the shoes, and new models were released every year. The Air Max wasn't just for runners, it became a fashion statement. The Air Jordan line also continued to grow. Michael Jordan was at the height of his career, and his shoes were more popular than ever. Each new Air Jordan release was a big event, with people lining up outside stores to buy them. The Air Jordan line helped Nike dominate the basketball market and stay ahead of competitors like Reebok.
The Just Do It campaign.
In 1988, Nike launched one of the most famous advertising campaigns in history. Just do it. This slogan captured the spirit of Nike: determination, hard work, and never giving up. The campaign featured athletes from all sports, as well as everyday people who push their limits. It was inspiring and relatable, and it helped Nike connect with a wider audience. The Just Do It campaign was a huge success. It not only increased sales, but also strengthened Nike's brand identity. People began to see Nike as more than just a shoe company. They saw it as a symbol of motivation and achievement.
Controversies and criticism.
Despite its success, Nike faced criticism in the 1990s. One of the biggest issues was labor practices. Some people accused Nike of using factories in poor countries where workers were paid very little and worked in bad conditions. These factories were called sweatshops, and the criticism was a major problem for Nike's reputation. At first, Nike denied the accusations, but as the criticism grew, the company realized it needed to take action. They began to investigate their factories and make changes to improve conditions. They also started working with independent organizations to monitor their factories and ensure fair treatment of workers. Nike's response to the controversy was not perfect, but it showed that the company was willing to change. Over time, Nike became a leader in corporate responsibility, setting an example for other companies to follow.
Expanding into new markets.
In the 1990s, Nike also expanded into new markets. They started making shoes and clothing for sports like soccer, tennis, and golf. They signed endorsement deals with famous athletes like Tiger Woods, golf, and Ronaldo, soccer. These partnerships helped Nike grow its presence in global markets. Nike also entered the women's market in a big way. They created special lines of shoes and clothing designed for women, and they featured female athletes in their advertising. This helped Nike connect with a new audience and grow its customer base.
The rise of streetwear.
One of the biggest trends of the 1990s was the rise of streetwear, casual, stylish clothing, and shoes that people wore every day. Nike saw an opportunity to expand into this market. They started making shoes that were not just for sports, but also for fashion. The Air Max and Air Jordan lines were perfect for this, as they were both functional and stylish. Nike also collaborated with designers and celebrities to create limited edition shoes. These collaborations were very popular, and people often lined up for hours to buy them. This helped Nike stay relevant and cool in the eyes of young people.
Challenges in the late 1990s.
By the late 1990s, Nike faced new challenges. Sales began to slow down, and the company had to rethink its strategy. One of the problems was that Nike had become too focused on fashion and not enough on performance. Some people felt that the quality of Nike shoes had declined. To address this, Nike went back to its roots. They focused on creating high-performance shoes for athletes and improving the quality of their products. They also continued to innovate, introducing new technologies like shocks, a type of cushioning that used columns of foam to provide support and energy return.
A new era for Nike.
As the 1990s came to an end, Nike was ready for a new era. They had faced challenges and criticism, but they had also learned important lessons. The company was stronger and more focused than ever. They knew that to stay on top, they needed to continue innovating, listening to their customers, and staying true to their values. The next chapter of Nike's story would involve new technologies, new markets, and new challenges. But one thing was certain: Nike would continue to inspire athletes and everyday people around the world.
Chapter 5. Global Domination.
By the early 2000s, Nike was already a global brand. Their shoes and clothing were sold in almost every country, and their logo was recognized everywhere. But Nike didn't stop there. This chapter tells the story of how Nike continued to grow, innovate, and adapt to a changing world.
Expanding into new markets.
In the 2000s, Nike focused on expanding into new markets. They wanted to reach more people and become a truly global brand. One of their biggest targets was Asia, especially China. China was a huge market with millions of potential customers. Nike opened stores, sponsored local athletes, and created marketing campaigns specifically for Chinese consumers. This strategy worked, and Nike became one of the most popular brands in China. Nike also expanded into other regions like Europe, South America, and Africa. They sponsored soccer teams, running clubs, and other sports organizations to build their presence in these markets. By the 2010s, Nike was a truly global company, with products sold in over 190 countries.
Diversification. More than just shoes.
In the 2000s, Nike also diversified its product line. They were no longer just a shoe company. They were a sportswear company. Nike started making clothing, accessories, and equipment for almost every sport. They created lines for running, basketball, soccer, tennis, golf, and even yoga. This diversification helped Nike reach more customers and grow its business. One of Nike's most successful new products was the Nike Pro line, which included tight-fitting shirts and shorts for athletes. These products were designed to improve performance and comfort, and they became very popular with both professional athletes and everyday people.
Technology and innovation.
Innovation has always been at the heart of Nike's success, and the 2000s were no different. Nike continued to develop new technologies to improve their products. One of their most important innovations was Flyknit, a type of material that was lightweight, flexible, and sustainable. Flyknit shoes were made from a single piece of fabric, which reduced waste and made the shoes more comfortable. Nike also introduced Nike Plus, a technology that allowed runners to track their performance using sensors in their shoes and a smartphone app. This was one of the first examples of wearable technology, and it helped Nike connect with tech-savvy consumers. Another major innovation was Nike Air VaporMax, a shoe that took air technology to the next level. The VaporMax had a completely new design, with air pockets that covered the entire sole. This made the shoe lighter and more comfortable than ever before.
Sustainability and social responsibility.
In the 2000s, Nike also became a leader in sustainability and social responsibility. They realized that as a global company, they had a responsibility to protect the environment and improve the lives of workers in their factories. Nike started using more sustainable materials in their products, like recycled polyester and organic cotton. They also set goals to reduce waste and carbon emissions. For example, they created the Nike Grind program, which recycles old shoes into new products like sports surfaces and playgrounds. Nike also worked to improve conditions in their factories. They partnered with organizations to monitor labor practices and ensure fair treatment of workers. While there were still challenges, Nike's efforts showed that they were committed to making a positive impact.
Marketing and endorsements.
Nike's marketing strategy in the 2000s was as strong as ever. They continued to sign endorsement deals with some of the biggest names in sports. For example, they signed LeBron James, one of the best basketball players in the world, to a lifetime contract. They also sponsored soccer stars like Cristiano Ronaldo and Neymar, helping Nike dominate the global soccer market. Nike's advertising campaigns were also very successful. They continued to use the Just Do It slogan, but they also created new campaigns that focused on social issues. For example, in 2018, Nike released a campaign featuring Colin Kaepernick, an American football player who protested against racial injustice. The campaign was controversial, but it showed that Nike was willing to take risks and stand up for what they believed in.
Challenges in the 2010s.
Despite its success, Nike faced challenges in the 2010s. One of the biggest was competition from new brands like Under Armour and Lululemon. These brands focused on specific markets, Under Armour on performance wear and Lululemon on yoga and athleisure, and they became very popular. Nike also faced criticism for its labor practices, even though they had made improvements. Some people felt that Nike wasn't doing enough to ensure fair treatment of workers in their factories. Nike responded by increasing transparency and working with independent organizations to monitor their supply chain.
The future of Nike.
As Nike entered the 2020s, they were focused on the future. They continued to innovate, creating new products and technologies to meet the needs of athletes and everyday people. They also focused on sustainability, with goals to reduce their environmental impact and create a more circular economy. Nike's success is a testament to the power of innovation, determination, and adaptability. From a small company selling shoes out of a car to a global brand worth billions of dollars, Nike has come a long way. But one thing has never changed: their commitment to helping athletes push their limits and achieve their dreams.
Chapter 6. Nike Today.
Today, Nike is one of the most recognized and influential brands in the world. From its humble beginnings in the 1960s to its current status as a global leader in sportswear, Nike has come a long way. This chapter explores where Nike stands today, its efforts in sustainability, its impact on communities, and its vision for the future.
A global leader in sportswear.
Nike is now a giant in the sportswear industry. Their products are sold in over 190 countries, and they have millions of loyal customers around the world. Nike's logo, the famous swoosh, is instantly recognizable, and their slogan, "Just Do It," inspires people to push their limits and achieve their goals. Nike's product line has also expanded significantly. They no longer just sell shoes. They offer a wide range of products, including clothing, accessories, and equipment for almost every sport. Whether you're a professional athlete or someone who enjoys staying active, Nike has something for you.
Commitment to sustainability.
In recent years, Nike has made sustainability a top priority. They understand that as a global company, they have a responsibility to protect the environment. Nike's goal is to create products that are not only high-performing, but also sustainable. One of Nike's most important initiatives is the use of recycled materials. For example, they have created shoes and clothing made from recycled polyester, plastic bottles, and even old shoes. This helps reduce waste and keeps materials out of landfills. Nike has also set ambitious goals to reduce their carbon footprint. They are working to use 100% renewable energy in their factories and offices, and they aim to reduce their greenhouse gas emissions by 30% by 2030. These efforts show that Nike is committed to making a positive impact on the planet.
Nike Grind, turning waste into new products.
One of Nike's most innovative sustainability programs is Nike Grind. This program takes old shoes and turns them into new products. For example, old sneakers can be recycled into sport surfaces like basketball courts and running tracks. They can also be used to make new shoes, clothing, and even playgrounds. Nike Grind is a great example of how a company can create a circular economy, a system where products are reused and recycled instead of being thrown away. This not only helps the environment, but also inspires other companies to think creatively about sustainability.
Community impact.
Nike is not just focused on profits. They also care about making a positive impact on communities. Through their Nike Community Impact programs, they support initiatives that promote sports, education, and social justice. One of their key programs is Nike School Innovation, which helps schools provide better physical education and sports programs for students. Nike believes that sports can teach important life skills, like teamwork, discipline, and perseverance. By supporting schools, they help young people stay active and healthy. Nike also supports social justice initiatives. For example, they have donated millions of dollars to organizations that fight for equality and justice. They have also used their platform to raise awareness about important issues like racial inequality and gender equality.
Innovation and technology.
Innovation has always been at the heart of Nike's success, and they continue to push the boundaries of technology. One of their latest innovations is Nike Adapt, a line of shoes that can be adjusted using a smartphone app. These shoes use sensors and motors to automatically adjust the fit, providing maximum comfort and support. Nike is also exploring the use of 3D printing to create custom shoes. This technology allows Nike to make shoes that are tailored to an individual's foot shape and size. It's a revolutionary idea that could change the way shoes are made in the future.
Challenges and criticisms.
Despite its success, Nike still faces challenges and criticisms. One of the biggest challenges is competition from other brands like Adidas, Puma, and Under Armour. These companies are also innovating and creating high-quality products, which means Nike has to work harder to stay ahead. Nike has also faced criticism for its labor practices. While they have made improvements, some people believe that Nike needs to do more to ensure fair treatment of workers in their factories. Nike has responded by increasing transparency and working with independent organizations to monitor their supply chain.
The future of Nike.
As Nike looks to the future, they are focused on continuing to innovate and inspire. They want to create products that help athletes of all levels perform at their best. They also want to lead the way in sustainability and social responsibility. One of Nike's key goals is to create a zero-waste future. This means finding ways to eliminate waste in their production process and create products that can be fully recycled. It's a big challenge, but Nike is committed to making it happen. Nike is also exploring new markets and opportunities. For example, they are investing in digital fitness and wearable technology, like smartwatches and fitness trackers. These products allow people to track their workouts, set goals, and stay motivated.
A legacy of inspiration.
Nike's story is one of innovation, determination, and inspiration. From its early days as a small company selling shoes out of a car to its current status as a global brand, Nike has always been driven by a passion for sports and a commitment to helping athletes achieve their dreams. As Nike continues to grow and evolve, one thing is certain: they will always be a symbol of excellence, innovation, and the power of sports to bring people together.